This slide gives us a broad overview of the natural resources sector as we look ahead to 2026 on a global scale. We're focusing specifically on mining, energy, and forestry, three critical industries that shape our world. These sectors are known for their high complexity, involving many factors from environmental impact to market fluctuations and regulatory challenges. The status of this sector is live, meaning we're actively tracking developments and changes in real time. Understanding this landscape and its associated risks is essential as we navigate investments in natural resources going forward. Here we have an overview of the investment landscape broken down into three main categories: minerals and metals, energy and fossil fuels, and agriculture and forestry. Starting with minerals and metals, this includes commodities like copper, lithium, gold, and iron ore. The returns in this category are influenced largely by industrial demand and the quality of the reserves available. Moving to energy and fossil fuels, this covers oil, gas, coal, and power assets. Here, cash flow is closely tied to price cycles and also impacted by regulatory and policy pressures. Finally, in agriculture and forestry, we're looking at farmland, timber, and various crop systems. The performance in this lane depends on factors like land productivity, climate conditions, and export market dynamics. Each resource lane operates under different economic drivers, which is important to keep in mind when considering investment strategies across these sectors. On this slide, we're focusing on risk dispatch in the context of supply chains and geopolitics. First, we have several key nodes to consider: extraction nodes where raw materials are sourced, transit nodes where goods move through ports or railways, and exposure at each of these points. Now, geopolitical and supply chain risks play a critical role here. For instance, policies like permits, royalties, or export rules can change abruptly, which can create sudden challenges. This means companies must stay alert and continually monitor these policy shifts. Then there are transit-related risks. Ports, rail lines, and shipping choke points are vulnerable spots that can cause significant delays in delivery times. These bottlenecks highlight the importance of understanding where goods are moving and how disruptions might ripple through the system. Another major risk factor is concentration. When sourcing is heavily reliant on a single country, it magnifies the impact of any disruption. This concentration can lead to sharp price increases or supply shortages, making diversification an important strategy. Because these risks are interconnected and constantly evolving, punctual scenario planning is essential. Being proactive and prepared for various potential disruptions helps businesses manage uncertainty and maintain resilience in their supply chains. Here we see the environmental and regulatory complexity involved in our projects. First, climate regulations are becoming more stringent, with carbon rules, reporting mandates, and emissions caps all significantly impacting project economics. These changes require us to carefully analyze and adapt our financial and operational strategies. Next, ESG compliance is another critical area, as standards continue to multiply. It's no longer enough to meet basic requirements. Materiality, traceability, and audit readiness are now essential. Organizations need to ensure full transparency and accountability throughout their processes. Finally, jurisdictional challenges add another layer of complexity. Local permitting processes, community approvals, water rights, and land access can all create delays and obstacles in project execution. These factors make it clear that we're dealing with three interconnected systems: environmental, regulatory, and jurisdictional, that demand a multi-layer review with no shortcuts. Altogether, these elements form one comprehensive investment case that requires meticulous attention to detail and thorough planning to navigate successfully. Here, we're focusing on price risk, which is a critical element of market exposure. One key point to understand is that volatility can cause value to change dramatically overnight. This is primarily driven by fluctuations in commodity prices, which is the main risk factor we're dealing with. Prices of commodities like copper, iron ore, and oil can shift significantly and much faster than project economics can adapt. For example, we've seen copper drop by 6.4%, iron ore by 4.1%, and oil by 8.7%. This kind of rapid movement in commodity prices highlights the real challenge of managing price risk in a live market environment. When we talk about due diligence, it's all about ensuring every departure is accounted for before moving forward. The first step is to verify the geological feasibility. This means assessing the reserve quality, understanding the extraction profile, and confirming that the technical aspects are realistic. Next, we review the operational track record. It's important to look at delivery history, equipment uptime, and how well management has executed past projects. Then, we confirm regulatory compliance. This involves checking permits, the project standing within the community, and any jurisdictional risks that might be present. Finally, we conduct a stress test on financial stability. We evaluate the strength of the balance sheet, the funding runway, and how sensitive the project is to price changes. Only after completing these four critical checks do we feel confident in committing capital. On this slide, we focus on allocation design with the goal of spreading exposure across different regions, resources, and stages of project maturity. This approach helps to manage risk and optimize returns in a diversified portfolio. First, when we talk about geographic diversification, the idea is to balance investments between developed and frontier markets. This reduces reliance on any single country's policies and helps avoid concentrated risks. Pairing producing basins across continents further spreads geographic exposure. Next, diversifying by commodity type is crucial. By blending energy, metals, and agricultural assets, we balance cyclical and defensive market segments. This mix helps smooth out volatility, especially when combined with hedging strategies to protect against correlated price shocks. Finally, allocation by investment stage involves mixing exploration, development, and producing assets. This lets us balance upside potential with steady cash flows from mature projects. Staggering entry points throughout the project cycle also reduces timing risks and creates a more resilient portfolio. Overall, the key strategy here is to diversify by different sources of risk, geography, commodity type, and project maturity to build a robust and balanced portfolio that can adapt to changing market conditions. On this slide, we're looking at a case study focusing on operations in an emerging market. One of the key challenges we faced was with permits. Local approvals moved much slower than the capital deployment, which created a timing imbalance early in the project. Logistics also played a crucial role. Gaps in road infrastructure, power availability, and port access significantly reshaped the project economics, forcing us to adjust our plans and expectations. Another important factor was partnerships. Aligning with the local community helped reduce risks of disruption, which is often a major concern in frontier markets. Despite these efforts, the outcome showed that returns only improved after implementing a phased ramp-up. This gradual approach allowed us to better manage the operational complexities. The broader market context here is a frontier environment where execution risks often exceed the initial assessment of resource quality. The operating lesson we learned is that in these markets, strong local engagement and flexibility in execution strategies are key to overcoming unforeseen challenges. Currently, the site feed and field operations are live, requiring ongoing attention to maintain this delicate balance. Here, we see how ESG, or environmental, social, and governance principles, transform compliance efforts into tangible asset quality improvements. Starting with permitting, integrating ESG leads to a stronger social license, which means fewer project delays due to community or regulatory concerns. Moving into operations, ESG practices help create safer sites with lower risks of disruption, which in turn improves cost control and operational efficiency. From a capital perspective, adopting ESG principles supports long-term returns by lowering investment risks. Overall, this approach reduces risk, preserves value, and ensures projects are completed punctually. So, ESG is not just about meeting standards. It actively enhances the reliability and profitability of our field operations and transition assets. Here, we see how decision systems are structured to improve technology and data-driven decision-making. It starts with the input, which comes from sources like remote sensing and geological data. This raw input provides the foundational information needed. Next, the system processes this data into signals through market analytics, helping to identify patterns and relevant trends. Then, using predictive modeling, we move to the forecast stage, where future outcomes are estimated to support better decision-making. All of this happens in a real-time stack designed to lower noise and improve timing, ensuring that the information is both accurate and timely. The system's key functions focus on minimizing latency, meaning decisions can be made faster, and maintaining a live status by 2026, with data being updated daily or even more frequently. Essentially, this approach transforms uncertainty into clear signals, enabling us to make smarter choices based on solid data. Let's walk through the 5 key moves in our action framework. First, we start by assessing jurisdiction risk. It's crucial to understand the legal and regulatory environment where you're operating, as this can significantly impact your project success. Next, we stress test price assumptions. This means evaluating how changes in market prices could affect your outcomes, helping you prepare for volatility. Third, we verify reserves, permits, and counterparties. Ensuring all resources are accounted for, regulatory approvals are in place, and partners are reliable is essential for smooth operations. Fourth, we diversify across resource types. This reduces risk by not relying too heavily on a single asset or commodity. Finally, continuous monitoring allows us to stay agile and respond promptly to any changes or emerging risks. Together, these 5 moves form a comprehensive framework to guide effective decision-making and risk management. Now, let's focus on building the strategy before deciding on the position. The first step is to clearly define the mandate. This means setting your target resources, establishing risk limits, and determining the investment horizon that aligns with your goals. Next, we need to screen opportunities carefully. This involves comparing assets based on their jurisdiction, the operators behind them, and how resilient their cash flow is under different conditions. Finally, it's crucial to set monitoring rules. We track key indicators like price movements, regulatory changes, ESG signals, and exposure within the supply chain to stay ahead of any risks or opportunities. With this structured approach, every departure is accounted for, ensuring a thorough and informed investment plan.